begin by extending my thanks to the Special Representative of the Secretary General on Sexual Violence in Conflict, Ms. Pramila Patten, for inviting South Africa to be co-host of this event today. We welcome to this occasion the diverse participants, and in particular those who have been victims and survivors of sexual violence in conflict-affected countries. We believe our interactions today with the relevant role players will allow us to not only assess the achievements and challenges of the mandate given to the Special Representative, but to also receive first-hand information from practitioners working with those who have suffered the trauma of sexual violence in conflict, as well as the victims and survivors of these heinous acts. Sexual violence is not only peculiar to countries affected by conflict, but occurs in varying degrees in all countries, both developed as well as developing, those in conflict as well as those at peace. Even though my own country, South Africa, is not a country in conflict, we unfortunately have significant challenges of gender-based violence, in particular sexual violence. In our case, the most affected by these crimes are the most vulnerable: women, children, the elderly, the LGBTI community, and persons with varying disabilities. So we support the work of the Special Representative, as we know from our own post-apartheid context that the conflict and violence of apartheid increased violence of toxic masculinity in our own country. Sexual violence is not a problem which can be addressed one-dimensionally. We need a multidimensional and multidisciplinary approach if we are to address this challenge through strengthening law enforcement mechanisms, promoting social cohesion, protecting and reaffirming the rights of victims and survivors, and providing support to those affected by violence. This means that in order to address this particular set of challenges, we need to involve a variety of sectors, both in the public as well as the private sector, as well as non-governmental and civil society organizations. I strongly agree with the Deputy Secretary General, Ms. Amina Mohammed, that one of the things we've got to look at is why do we continue to have this very situation. I think one of the areas in which we do need to give greater attention is that of research. I don't think we're doing enough to understand the factors that relate to the practice and levels of violence that we see in many of our societies. We need, through improved research, to have a deeper understanding of the causal factors and to attack these in order to ensure that we end the scourge of violence against women. And I don't think we're yet doing enough. We have had, as South Africa, significant participation by our country in peacekeeping missions in different parts of the world, and in particular the African continent. And it has been most troubling that at the inception of our free South Africa's participation in peacekeeping efforts, some of our armed forces have been involved in violence, sexual violence, gender-based violence against those they are meant to protect. This has been a shame for our country, and we have had to pass appropriate legislation in order to be able to prosecute such individuals. But it is clear that if we deploy uniformed services in any parts of the world, we should not make an assumption that it is understood that those who serve are there to protect the weak and innocent. they must be trained to understand that they are there to protect. We have in South Africa now begun to pay much more attention to this notion of a multi-stakeholder approach. We're currently implementing our own emergency response action plan to deal with gender-based violence. Part of this plan includes behavior change interventions seeking to influence the conduct of men and boys, the implementation of training on victim-centric, survivor-focused services, particularly with the focus on police personnel, on public prosecutors, on the judiciary, particularly the magistracy who often handle these cases, and on policymakers in our parliament. We've also established a dedicated gender-based violence fund to serve as a rapid response support tool to assist survivors at the community level. Such interventions are necessary in contexts of peace and are urgently necessary in conflict situations. Distinguished guests, excellencies, on this, the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the mandate and office of the Special Representative, we would like as South Africa to commend and reiterate our support for the efforts of the United Nations and the Special Representative in particular on the efforts directed at ending sexual violence in armed conflict situations and the work that has been done to ensure the full implementation of the measures for the prevention of and response to conflict-related sexual violence. We note the significant progress that has been made in the past 10 years in this area of work. Clearly, we also remain significantly concerned about the prevalence of incidents of conflict-related sexual violence perpetrated by both state and non-state actors, which ravage communities and destroy lives. We had a recent roundtable just this week where we were deliberating on the role of women in peacekeeping as members of either the armed forces or the police service. We have many women deployed in such offices. We brought some of these women to the United Nations to participate in a roundtable where we were discussing these matters. And I, as a minister in South Africa, was shocked to hear some of the testimony of our women in uniform. One of our women had been kidnapped by a group of men in Darfur, faced the threat of rape, and it was the first time we were hearing of her experience right here in our meeting. So clearly, as we talk about gender-based violence in conflict situations, we must also have attention to the matter of women who serve as peacekeepers, because they themselves are confronted by violence. And we tend to be speaking of civilians, of community members, and very rarely are we speaking of women soldiers or women in the police service. One of the aspects that we need to give much more attention to is another subject that we have discussed here at the United Nations, and that is ensuring a far greater emphasis on understanding of and practice of international humanitarian law. We need to have much more of a focus on this in the training provided to likely peacekeepers. Of course, it goes without saying that all parties to any conflict must always adhere to international humanitarian law, and that we should ensure that we scrupulously observe and monitor such adherence. If we were doing so more assiduously, we would not be having this debate today. Our common objective must be to end the scourge of this crime against women and children. But to do so, we must again address the root causes of sexual violence. One of the key interventions would be to address the behavior of the offenders. There is a need for accountability, but there's also a need for measures that focus on prevention and deterrence. I've been participating in many discussions on conflict, on peace and security, since becoming Minister of International Relations just 5 months ago. And I'm rather distressed because my sense is our debates suggest we are preparing all the time for conflict. It's very rare that our debates imply preparation for prevention. And I think we need to address this aspect in a much more concentrated and concerted fashion. Of course, as South Africa, we do believe that it is of utmost importance that perpetrators of sexual violence are held accountable for their crimes, even though in many situations perpetrators remain unidentified. The reality is that we find in most countries in conflict or post-conflict situations, there are deep capacity constraints, weak public institutions, inadequate systems of justice that cannot cope with new and increasing demands. And it is rare for us, as we support peacekeeping, to establish judicial mechanisms to actually try cases of perpetrators. This is not usually part of the interventions that we put in place. We need to look at how we can strengthen such measures and how we might give greater capacity to institutions that should actually ensure we prosecute perpetrators. So I think then it is important that we develop far stronger partnerships globally, regionally, and nationally to assist countries in conflict in building capacity and strengthening their institutions, particularly security and social services, both to deal with the perpetrators and to provide the necessary support to victims and survivors. These countries, of course, must be required to demonstrate political will and a commitment to hold perpetrators to account in order to send a clear message of deterrence for would-be offenders. One of the effective measures taken in order to deter, and which is probably worthy of copying, is the prohibition of all state actors repeatedly listed in the Secretary General's reports on sexual violence in conflict and children and armed conflict from participating in UN peacekeeping operations. So again, as civil society, we need to be paying particular attention to the Secretary General's reports. And when we're aware that actors who are listed in the report as being severe perpetrators, that they continue to be active in service, as civil society we must stand and resist. It is imperative that we have implementation and application of the established measures across all regions and in all our country situations. We believe we've reached an era that is far more hopeful than any part in the past. But there are many more conflicts arising from country to country. And in each of them, women and children are the victims. The vulnerable and the marginalized continue to suffer. So it is clear that we, along with the special representative, have a great deal of work to do. And I think that the special representative and the Secretary General should become far better at telling us as member nations how we should assist in order to end this scourge.